Have you heard me or other lactation professionals use the term chest feeding and wondered what that was all about? Or do you know what it's all about, but have never really gotten the opportunity to talk to somebody who uses that term for themselves? Well, today I am thrilled to present to you my conversation with Tanius. Tanius is a transgender man who gave birth to his baby and has been chest feeding, nursing, breastfeeding his son ever since. And we had such a great conversation about his experiences with milk making and why he has chosen to open up his life to the world so that more people understand what it's like to be a transgender person who is raising a child and who has chosen to provide their milk to their babies. And I am so glad that he is doing so because we can learn so much from him, not only about transgender feeding, but just about feeding babies in general. I hope you enjoy listening to this conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. When I began breastfeeding, I was blindsided by how difficult it was. Having known only a handful of people who had ever done it and only seeing it up close a couple of times, I had a huge learning curve. Since then, I've become a doula, a childbirth educator, and an internationally board-certified lactation consultant, or an IBCLC. I'm your host, Lo Nigrosh, and I welcome you to the Milk Making Minutes, where we explore the systemic, medical, and cultural barriers that make feeding our babies so difficult, so that you know your baby feeding struggles are not your fault, and your triumphs really are the miracles you feel they are.
I am Tanius. I currently have a 1.5-year-old. I've been chest feeding for the last year. I wouldn't say year and a half because it took me about 2 months to be able to produce anything. So almost a year and a half. And I share my journey just because there's not too many trans men that are open to chest feed or even share their journey.
Yeah.
Just to hopefully normalize it for the world.
Yeah, I love that. And I came across you on an episode of My Extraordinary Family.
Yes.
How long ago was that recorded?
7 months ago, 8 months ago. It was like 2 months before Zizi's birthday, actually, a month before.
Oh, wow. And you're still going strong with chest feeding?
Yes.
Okay.
I just started working today, so I'm going back to pumping.
Oh, wow.
Yes, this is my first day of work, so I had a pump. But being that I haven't pumped in almost 8 months, because he doesn't take bottles, he doesn't drink it out of a cup, so he's just strictly latching on. So I've got to build up my production or supply again because he's lost without it.
Yes. Well, maybe we can talk offline. Maybe I can help you figure that out.
Yes, because we struggle.
Yes. Okay. Well, how was your first day back at work after so many months, over a year and a half of being with your baby feeding?
Once I got there, I was okay, but it was like working myself up to it. Just the anxiety was through the roof. I'm making sure I've got everything prepared for him because it's just been him and I. There's been no breaks or anything, just him and I from day one. So, I mean, the anxiety was definitely through the roof. It wasn't as easy, but once I got there and put my headset on and just started listening to music, I zoned out. But I mean, I was checking the camera quite often.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was rough.
Wherever he's getting provided care, they have like a camera where you can watch it.
Well, I have my friend watching him while I'm taking him to daycare.
Okay.
So he had him at the house for the first part because I went to work at 5.
Okay.
So it was still early morning or whatnot. So I got cameras in my house, but they're out and about now.
Okay.
So I keep on tapping into the cameras because I'm not quite comfortable with the whole daycare yet, just because he's not eligible to talk and communicate his feelings.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
I'm trying to hold off as long as possible.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so before we get into all of your baby feeding triumphs and struggles. I would love to hear a little bit about what your exposure to breastfeeding and even chest feeding was long before it was your turn, before you were feeding babies. And this is a question that I ask all of my guests because breastfeeding and even chest feeding are not, even though they are natural in that it is a natural biological process, they are not natural in that it comes naturally. They are learned behaviors. And so one of the reasons so many of us struggle when we start feeding our babies is that the first baby we ever feed from our bodies is, or the first baby we've ever seen feeding from a body is our own. And so I would love to know what your exposure was as a child growing up, seeing babies feed. Did you mostly see babies feeding from bottles? Did you see breastfeeding? I have a feeling you didn't see any chest feeding, but you can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, not at all. I've been the first one. And ever since I started sharing mine, I started seeing other trans men that actually do chest feed. But prior to, the only person I'd ever seen breastfeed was my sister. And she's pretty much the main sole reason as to why I was adamant about doing it, because we all know fed is best, but I seen like a whole 360, like health wise, when it came to her first two kids or first three kids and her last one, because they're all formula fed and she was breastfed. And it was just like a whole 360 because they were sick a lot. It was crazy how many different formulas they went through, and just like the struggle that she went through just getting them formula, and no struggle at all with my niece, the last one. So that was another reason why I was very adamant about it. And also because the whole shortage, it is just like, okay, this is what I need to do, because one, I seen how well she progressed, and two, the shortage was real. But other than that, growing up, I never seen anybody breastfeeding at all.
Yeah, that makes it so challenging.
Yes.
And so when your sister was breastfeeding her fourth, had you already made your transition?
Yeah, I was already within my transition. At that time, I didn't even think I was going to have a child. He was not a planned pregnancy, FYI. But no, yeah, I was actually at the beginning of my transition.
Okay.
When my sister had her.
And was she breastfeeding openly? Was it something she was open to discussing?
No, she was very, very hidden about her whole feeding and all that. Like she'd go like hide off in her car and all that. Once I had ZZ or whatever, she had asked me, so do you plan on doing formula, or do you plan on breastfeeding, or however you want me to call it? I said, honestly, I want to breastfeed, but I'm a little keen on it because the lactation consultants that I've came across have been just absurd. So I don't know if I really want to. So she like called me, which mind you, she's in Washington State and I'm in Florida.
Okay.
So she called me like every single day. Hey, you need to do this. Hey, let me order you these nursing bras. It's gonna help you. Like she was like my biggest advocate when it came to it or whatever. Especially when I told her like I'm struggling. I want to, but I have nobody here to even help me. I can't produce. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, what do we do? At this point, I'm just going to give him formula, but now I'm trying to give him formula, but now here I got to drive an hour out just to get formula, and I can only get 2 cans. And he's not okay with the first set of formula, and the formula that they switched him to, they don't have it here. So what do I do? So she's video calling me and just calling me every single day, like, just do this. And then once I stopped stressing, it finally picked up on production, but it was hell.
Oh my gosh. That brought a feeling to my throat. I was choking up just thinking about feeling lost in the state of Florida, where there is so much going on with trans rights to begin with. It's a scary place to be a trans person, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And then to be getting care through pregnancy and then the postpartum period. And then to have that one lifeline be your sister who just openly embraced you and then helped you through it. It should not have been that way, but I'm so thankful to her.
I went through, and I feel like I had so many people like frown upon it because they accused me of having fentanyl in my system, because they are very adamant about taking my child, which is false accusations or everything with that. So I feel like that was another like frowned upon, like, why do you want to breastfeed and you've got drugs in your system, like, and then you're transitioning, like, it was just so much going on. It was hell.
I am so sorry. So yeah, take me back to, you find out you have the surprise pregnancy, and then you are deciding that you do want to feed human milk to your human baby, which all people should have the right to do. And then you said that the lactation consultants you were coming across were not being supportive. How are you finding lactation consultants?
The doctor said that the hospital has a lactation consultant, so they sent her in. And then people on TikTok were like, "Well, go to your WIC," because I was telling them, because at this time I was already sharing my journey and all that. So I was letting people know like I'm struggling with being able to produce and all that. And people were saying, "Well, check out your WIC. They've got lactation consultants at WIC." So then I called up WIC, got a WIC appointment, and then the lactation consultant there was no good. And then she was like, "Well, if you can't produce, you can't produce. Just get formula." I'm like, "Okay." And then I called another one. I was just Googling just random lactation consultants. I think I ended up going to like 5 different ones, and all of them were no help. Oh, and then my doctor for my checkup after I had him, she had sent me to a lactation consultant, and she was just rude. There's no way I can help you. If you've already been to 2, I can't help you.
What?
So I just left that. Yeah.
I want to say on behalf of the lactation consultants I know who could have given you great care, I am so sorry. It's not fair. It's not fair that that's what you received. All people deserve the right to good lactation care, and people in just like ordinary difficult circumstances don't get access to great care. And then you add on the complexities of bias and people not understanding the situation that you are in, being a trans man wanting to provide human milk to your babies, and then being treated with such bias is criminal. And those people should be required to provide you care.
And that's why I share my journey. Mm-hmm. And that's why whenever anybody, because usually I don't do any podcast or whatever, just pro bono. But when it comes to lactation, I do. I don't even hesitate, don't ask or anything like that, because I've had a lot of lactation consultants reach out to me and say, I feel bad because I was scared. A lot of people are scared of the unknown, and then it's like their defense mechanism is just to lash out and just act negative about it. Because the lactation consultant had reached out to me and said, I had a trans individual or whatever, and I treated them just the way you are. Now that I'm looking back on the situation, I treated them just as poorly as you were treated, and I feel horrible. But coming across your platform really had me take a step back and just look at, like, damn, I was that person that just treated that other individual just the same way. And that's why I keep on sharing, because I know a lot of people are just scared of the unknown and they don't know. They don't know. It's rare that they see trans men actually nursing their babies. So I feel like if I keep sharing my journey, other trans men behind me are going to be comfortable with chest feeding and may have that help not to struggle with it.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking that on. And I want to tell lactation professionals, because I have a lot who listen to my podcast, it is your responsibility to do the work, to educate yourself about this. It is not Tanius's responsibility or anybody else's. They are doing this for us because they are passionate about it, but it's not your responsibility. It's our responsibility to educate ourselves, to look at the studies, to figure out how to best serve all people who want to provide human milk to their babies. And so there are plenty of workshops out there that people can access. Some of them are even free, and you can get your educational requirements in for recertification. So do that work, because you don't want to be the person who's someone sitting in your office and you're the third person saying, I can't help you. I'm sorry.
My suggestion to everyone, if you're confused as to what terminology to use, because not too many people are like me. I really don't care. The terminology doesn't bother me, because I know a lot of people are unknown. But if you're trying to figure out like what term, just ask.
Right.
Do you want chest feeding? Do you want nursing? Do you want breastfeeding? Do you go by he, him, or they, them? I mean, because there are non-binary people too, and trans men. And there are trans men that are okay with the she, her pronouns or mom. It just all depends. Like, what do you want? It doesn't hurt to ask. It's not going to offend somebody because you asked.
Right, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And it's good practice just to have it on your intake forms as well for everybody, like what terms you prefer to use. Because some people don't like I hear a lot of birth professionals refer to every person as mama. Hey, mama, how you doing? And there's a lot of just heterosexual
yes, it's not just us trans individuals that want other terminology. Like it's a spectrum of people,
who don't want random people calling them mama,
Yes.
So just ask, what do you want to be called? But specifically for transgender or non-binary people, you're right. It's just best to ask. Before we hit record, I said, do you prefer the term chest feeding or what do you like to use?
And I appreciate it.
Right. Yeah.
It's not that hard, but a lot of people get an uproar because, I shouldn't have to. It feels like they're taken away, and we're not taken away. We're just trying to be inclusive.
Right.
Other than that, take it away, it's not the case. We're just trying to be inclusive.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I'm going to be real honest, Matt. I have a really hard time finding titles for my podcast episodes because SEO is really important and you want to draw people to your podcast. So in the beginning, I wanted to make sure that all of my titles were very inclusive for everybody so that all people knew that they could listen and get something out of the podcast. And so I'd always use human milk feeding, or I would say breastfeeding or chest feeding. And then it was like, the more I learned about SEO, it was like, well, the majority of people who are looking for this information are looking up breastfeeding. And so then how do I include all people, but then still have the titles?
Yeah,
it's
difficult. Not a win. It's so hard.
I know.
Because then once I see chest feeding off top, I don't want nothing to, I don't want nothing to do with you. Like,
it is so hard.
It's just inclusive.
It is so hard. Yeah. So I want to get you back to your story. You have your baby. You're in the hospital. Had you done a lot of research before that about how to get your milk supply to come in?
Yeah, I did a massive amount of research because I was pretty much dead set on chest feeding once, because before being pregnant, I didn't need top surgery. So I felt as if that was God telling me to go ahead and chest feed because the whole top half grew in to where it didn't look like I had top surgery because I didn't. So I'm like, okay, obviously this is my sign. So then once I started forming or whatever, let me go ahead and see what I can do. There are people saying that you can get the colostrum or whatever the correct terminology is for it. You could do that, but don't pump before or too early or whatever because it'll throw you into labor. I was doing a crazy amount. Get the this kind of supplements. Make sure you're eating a lot of oatmeal, drinking a lot of water. Like, I did a crazy amount of research.
Yeah.
But it still did not come in. And I feel like, well, I had so much going on and just stressing. And then I had a C-section. So I just feel like it was just a whole bunch of just stuff overwhelming to where I couldn't produce. But it took so long.
Yeah. Yeah. And were you able to get a pump on insurance? Through insurance?
Yeah,
okay.
I got a pump through insurance. TikTok was my biggest voice. Like when it came to like getting like, somebody had reached out to me on TikTok and said, hey, you can get a pump through your insurance. So then I made sure I got onto that. They sent me the link to that. And then it was like the belly band and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, I ended up getting that. And then WIC, that was the only thing that they're good for is giving me a pump. Like, well, you could go on about your day with the pump and try if you want to, but we can give you a pump.
Yeah.
But that was about it.
Okay. And did you use the pump to help get your milk supply going once you were realizing it was taking longer to come in?
Yeah, I kept pumping and pumping and pumping, no success. And then one day, and then plus I couldn't get him to latch. And then one day he had finally latched, and then it was over from there once he latched. Okay. But I would pump. Every 2 while I did the power pump because I had to research the power pump, figured out how to do that. And then I would pump every 2 hours, made sure I was every day, same time, waking up, stood it. Yeah. No success.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you think finally did it for you to bring your milk in? What do you think?
My sister told me to start listening to meditation and then just calming down and not stressing as much. I feel like once I stopped stressing, and then she told me to cut all the supplements out. So once I cut all the supplements out and actually sat down and started eating, and then also getting him to latch, it helped. But the supplements, I feel like the supplements did not help at all. I don't know. I could be wrong. I don't know if it was supplements or me not stressing or me actually eating. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. You were like buying milk making supplements. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I call that stuff kind of snake oil. I mean, sometimes I feel like it can have a placebo effect or it can have like a minimal effect. But what we know from the research is what helps milk supply is increasing the amount of stimulation at the breast or chest. And then your sister's advice to do the meditation and to try to reduce your stress was so good, because when stress hormones are flowing, that interacts with or cancels out the milk releasing hormones. So you could have milk in your milk ducts and the milk won't release if there's a lot of stress flowing, which is so hard, because if we're not producing the milk we want for our babies, of course we're going to stress out about it.
Yeah, especially looking for formula and horse and nothing
gosh.
sitting right with
Yeah.
you. Oh my goodness.
Now, when was your son born as it relates to the formula shortage?
January 3rd.
And the formula shortage started in like March or February, or was it already going?
It was already going.
Okay.
I think like at the beginning of my pregnancy. Don't quote me.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember either.
It was at an all-time high by the time I had him, though, because 2 cans per person. I'm like,
oh my
I just drove an
gosh.
hour to get these 2 cans, and at this time I'm by myself, so really I can only get 2 cans. If I had somebody else, and they could
right.
get 2 cans.
Oh my gosh, that is so challenging. So tell me about that experience from not getting your baby to latch and then finally getting him to latch. Tell me about that moment when you were like, oh my gosh, he's doing it.
It was a sigh of relief. It was like riding the bike, finally figured it out. Yes, I did it. I called my sister. I said, I finally got it. She said, really? It was like the middle of the night, like 3-4 o'clock in the morning. So it had been, it was 3 o'clock in her, because she's 3 hours behind me. So it was 3 o'clock for her, 6 o'clock for me. I'm calling her. She's like, hello. I'm like, I got it.
I love that.
This is really what you, congratulations, but this is really what you called me. I said, yes. I said, I got to celebrate with somebody.
I know, right?
I said, well, thank you. Whatever you said worked. She said, can I go to sleep now? Yes. That's all I wanted. It was like 3-4 o'clock her time.
Oh, I love that story. Yeah. So what were the tips that she was giving you to help you get him to latch?
Just keep trying to get him to latch.
Just keep
like,
at it.
I can't really tell you how to latch him because every baby is different, but just keep at it. Eventually, rotate him from side to side, and eventually he'll take to one side and just go from there. I said, and she's like, just do not get frustrated because he's going to feel your frustration and he's not going to want to latch. Or she said, as long as you stay calm, he'll be okay.
Wow. Your sister should become a lactation professional. She's good. Yeah.
All the time. She needs to.
Yeah. Maybe you too.
I thought about it, but I'm like, I don't really want to tussle with these people because they have issues. I did think about it for a while. I'm like, at this point in time, I might as well become a lactation consultant, especially for the trans community, because I don't see any trans men that are lactation consultants. But I'm like, I don't know how people are going to feel about it.
I have a really busy week coming up, and I thought, what better way to reduce my stress than to go onto feastandfettle.com and order meals for that week so I can just take one thing off of my plate by putting delicious meals onto my plate. See what I did there? So I went on to their website. It's really easy to use. I looked at all of the menu options for the week, and some of the things I'm excited about are some grilled steak tips with a delicious Thai peanut sauce and some green beans with a soy sesame sauce that's on the side. But there's so many other things. And that is one of the ways that I am choosing to provide self-care for myself so that I can reduce my stress load. If you would like to do the same and spend more time with your family and less time worrying about what's for dinner, go to feastandfettle.com to get home cooked meals delivered right to your front door. And you can get $30 off your first week's delivery by using my code MILK, MILK. And just let somebody else cook for you. You won't regret it.
If you're listening to this podcast, then you are more than aware of all the barriers that can make feeding our babies so difficult. You are also more than aware that support can make all the difference. So if you are struggling to feed your baby in the way that you had hoped, or if it is more stressful or anxiety inducing than you had anticipated, then what are you waiting for? I am here for you. Go to my website, www.quabbinbirthservices.com. I can't wait to connect with you. I can help you take the next right step in your baby feeding journey so that you feel less anxiety and get more joy out of those moments when you are feeding your baby. I can't wait to hear from you. Talk to you soon.
Yeah. So you could have, it takes a while to become an IBCLC, but there are like scholarships and stuff. And the IBCLC community is trying to grow in their diversity and representation. And I have never met a trans man who is an IBCLC, a trans person, really. I can imagine you having an amazing like business model where you are helping people all over the country virtually, because to be honest, lactation consultants can do a lot of work virtually, because I try as much as possible not to touch parents and babies, because if you're doing a lot of the hands-on stuff, then once you leave, they can't do it themselves. Right. So I tried. Now, sometimes you do need to like help and touch, but most often I try to like keep my hands in my pocket or, guide people with my voice, and that can be done virtually. So just a thought,
I just got to figure out what I got to do to go about doing it. I'm always down for it.
Yeah. People need someone who has been where they are, so I'm always happy to help a trans person with milk making. But if a trans person is helping a trans person with milk making,
right.
It's totally different.
Easier, because if I had me in the beginning of my journey, I probably would have produced a lot sooner.
Right.
It's like, oh, here we go again.
I know.
Eye to eye.
Right. Wow. That is some tenacity to not give up for that long.
Yes. Wasn't easy, but once I look back at it now, it's like, it was worth it. I mean, hasn't been sick, and just the progression and everything, the growth, it's worth it.
Yeah. And once he did start latching, did you ever experience any pain? Was it a painful latch? No, did you have to work it out?
No, the only time it's been painful is when he gets teeth and he bites me.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But other than that, it's never been a painful latch at all.
Okay. Wow. And in looking back, can you think about what was making it so difficult for him to latch in the first place?
I was just stressed out and didn't have any kind of patience with him.
Yeah. So as soon as you were able to
come on, and then I'm like half asleep, and it's just so much going on. It's just me and him, and then dealing with CPS. It's like he felt and knew that I was stressed out, because we know babies, they sense everything before we even know what's going. And I just feel like he just knew that I was already at ease and all that.
Yeah. Honestly. So you got tagged by the medical professionals in the hospital for CPS because they thought you had fentanyl in your system?
It wasn't a thought. They said that I had fentanyl in my system, which, mind you, when I'm talking to people now, but the doctors that I used to go to, they used to drug test me every single time I would go to my appointments. And people are saying, well, they're not supposed to. They drug test you at the beginning, they drug test you at the end. Some people say they only get drug tested at the beginning. But with me, they drug tested me every single time. So I went to my doctor, drug tested that Friday, and I went in that Monday. I went into labor Sunday or Monday, and they drug tested me again, and mysteriously I had fentanyl in my system. Neither one of us went through withdrawals. Nothing. Yeah. I'm like, and as I'm doing like the research on fentanyl, because I didn't know nothing about it, you got to go through some bit of withdrawals or the baby. But they're saying that we both have fentanyl in our system, but both of us were fine.
And did they ever show you the drug test reports that?
They refused to show me. They said it's already at labs.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And the fact that you got tagged, did they drug test everybody in their practice at every appointment? Did you ask them that?
I don't even know. Which now that I look back on it, because at that point in time, I was just stressed out, just ready to get him out of my face. I really could have looked into a lawyer and all that. But at that time, I just wanted to get him out of my face and just go on about life and just put it behind us. But if I really dug deep into it, I probably could have actually made something out of it. But I just wanted to put it behind us and just progress.
Yeah. And I think that your connection to dealing with that incredibly stressful situation, you always had him in your care, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Well, the only thing that they made me do is get somebody in my house or to stay at my house 24/7. I couldn't go anywhere by myself with him. But he was never taken away. And then CPS would do random pop-ups to do a drug test. But as long as I had somebody there 24 hours a day, which I had to have somebody in my house, I think the case stayed open for almost 2 months.
Wow. And then after that 2 months, magically,
it was
ZZ latched.
Almost 2 months. And then, I produced, it was a week, almost 2 weeks after it was all closed.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Which I know is because I'm trans. I was their first transgender patient at their hospital.
And were the nurses supportive on the floor?
The nurses were really nice.
Oh, good.
Yeah, the nurses were really nice. It was just that one random guy that did the UA. That's what had me all puzzled. I don't know. I don't know why it came about, but they said I had fentanyl in my system, which I didn't even know what fentanyl was. I don't even do drugs. That's what I thought. I said, I don't even smoke cigarettes. I don't do anything. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. And then it is no coincidence that it wasn't until that case got resolved that is when you were able to latch your baby. You were so right about that babies, they do feel, there are studies that show that when the stress hormone raises in the parent, in the feeding parent, the stress hormone also raises in the baby as well.
Because right after that, we're good. We're golden.
Yeah. Once he started latching, were you also supplementing with formula for a while, or was it
And formula until that can was gone. I just started a brand new can, so I'd give him formula and then latch him. Because when I'd pump, I wasn't really pumping much at all besides a couple drops. But then once I ran out of that formula and I wasn't really pumping, I just gave up on the whole pump in general. But being that I gave up on the whole pumping in general, he started not wanting the bottle.
Okay.
So then we just went to just latching, which I should have just kept pumping instead of giving up, because if I would have kept pumping, it would have ended up progressing. I just gave up with it as a whole.
Well, it's hard to do both, especially when you're a single parent, to be pumping and feeding at the body and feeding a bottle. That's a lot of work.
So much.
Yeah.
We ain't got to clean nothing. We don't got to make a bottle. We don't have to do freezing of it. And then plus I started running out of room in my freezer space. So we're just going to put these pumps up.
Right. Exactly. And what pumps were you using?
I had 2 Mandelas. And then the Lancino.
Oh, okay.
And terrible ones right now.
Okay.
Which one's Bella Baby?
Okay.
They reached out to me to do a product review on the Bella Baby.
Oh, awesome. Amazing. Yeah.
That's why I have it.
So has the pumping community, because I know that you do, you have a TikTok account, you're on Instagram, and you do a lot of education now. So has the pumping community, as far as not just, ordinary people, but like products? Have they been open to you and wanting to share their products with you?
And I know it's because I'm trans, but almost every pumping product has reached out to me.
Yeah.
But at that time when they were reaching out to me, I was trying to get moved from Florida to Georgia. So I haven't really been able to take on anything. You had just started to reach out to me when I just moved here. So I'm like, let me go ahead and start picking up on doing podcasts again. But yeah, I've been denying up until just now.
Well, I'm glad I swooped into your DMs right at the right time.
Yeah. Well, I don't ever turn down lactation consultants just because I want other lactation consultants to know we are here. We're not trying to replace nothing, taking nothing, just we're here. Because I'm very adamant about making it easier for the next trans individual.
That's right. There's always room at the table. It's, sometimes even with lactation consultants, it's like lactation consultants tend to push newcomers away, like other lactation consultants. And I tell people there's room at the table for more. We can eat. Yeah, exactly. And it's the same with people who want to feed their babies human milk. There's room at the table for so many more people. There's room at the table for discussion. There's room at the table for more terms. If you want to continue to use the term breastfeeding, use the term breastfeeding. It does not mean that other people can't use different terms.
Right. It's not even you less of, you're still a mother.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Right. A birthing person does not take away from a mother, Yeah, right. Exactly.
And they feel like we transition, we should already be stripped off of carrying and nursing and all that. But they don't really look at the whole picture, like what we've got to go through for somebody else to carry our child. We've got to pay thousands and thousands of dollars for somebody else to carry a child. We could do it ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
For free.
Right. Right.
We can feed ourselves for free. So
right.
You have to go. And then matter of fact, let me get onto this topic. So I'm in this donor group or whatever. I see all these parents pretty much crying because they cannot find donor milk, which mind you, I've got freezers staffed full of milk. So I reach out to them. I always give them, I'm very transparent about it. I'm transgender. I birthed my baby. I'm on no testosterone. I've got a lot of milk. If you would like to get it tested, you can go get it tested. You can have it for free because I understand how it is. They automatically block me. Automatically. And I tell them I send them pictures of my child, which there's predators and all that, but I still send them pictures so you can see the growth. From then to now, all the milk that I've got, that I've pumped and all that, and I said, you can get it tested. It's all for free. And they refuse to take my donor milk.
Oh.
In this group, for God knows how, I watch these parents. Like, they are like breaking down, saying their whole life story as to why they cannot find milk. And here I am, willing to travel. There's one lady, she was like an hour, almost 2 hours away. I said, I'll drive to you. It's not a big deal because I know the struggle of not being able to have milk. No, I'm okay.
Nobody wants your milk. Oh my God.
Yeah. He's crazy.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry.
Okay. I mean, it's not going to make your kid transgender. But
right. Right.
They're thinking like, oh no, the milk's got to turn them gay or trans. Like,
okay. Yeah, I know. I'm speechless. So I have a couple of questions. One is about, I love the term that I saw on the My Extraordinary Family video, the seahorse dad term.
Oh, yeah.
I had not heard that in reference to chest feeding transgender dads. I just love it. My kids and I had just listened to this long podcast about seahorse dads. And so when my daughter and I, the reason we came across your video, and I wrote this in my initial message to you, was because my daughter had seen a drawing of a trans man feeding a baby. She's 5. And so she had said, wait, men can't feed babies. And I said, oh yeah, they can. Transgender men feed babies with their own bodies. And so we talked about it. And I said, do you want to see if we can find a video of somebody doing that? And so I Googled it in YouTube, and your video was the first one to pop up. And so we watched the whole the whole video of that episode of
That's
My Extraordinary Family. Yeah. And I said, that's really cool, right? The way he was able to feed his baby with his own body. In that video, you talked about using the term seahorse dad. And so I would love to hear like how long that term has been around, if you know, and how.
Honestly, I don't know when it was coined. There's a lot of trans men, because I'm not the first trans man that's had a baby or whatnot.
No.
But like if you go on the TikTok on the search thing, if you type in seahorse dad, us and me and many other seahorse trans men use that. So then there's a group of us that use it, but we use seahorse dad because in the seahorse community, we all know we're not an animal. We know that. But when it comes to the seahorse community, the seahorse dads, the dads are the ones that give birth to their babies. So that's pretty much why we piggybacked off of that, because I mean, we're trans men, we're fathers, and we give birth to our babies. But as to when it came about, don't quote me, because even before my transition, I only knew a handful. And if I knew any trans people, it was trans women. And that's another reason why I share my journey, because when you think of trans, well, when a lot of people think of trans, they off top think of trans women. Trans men are off to the back. So that's why I share, because I want other people to realize that we are here too. Because when they come across my platform, they think off top that I'm a trans woman carrying a baby. When in all reality, it's a trans man carrying a baby, and we're all here. There's many of us. One, I'm the first one. But that's pretty much, no, I done got off of, but that's why we use seahorse. But I don't know when it came about. Don't quote me, but I just piggybacked off of it. But I knew Kaden had used seahorse dad.
Yeah.
So his was seahorse papa.
Oh.
Pretty much branched off from there.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. And I think it's great because a lot of people say, you know, it's not natural for a man to carry a baby or whatever. And I think it's really great to point. There's lots of examples in the animal kingdom of the male of the species doing what we consider more female gendered childcare tasks. So like taking care of the eggs because or birthing the
cisgender male
baby.
Would probably want to carry their own babies. I've came across a lot of them that, yeah, I would carry a baby. If I was able to carry a baby, I would. Because a lot of them don't want to have to deal with another partner. They just want to have a child on their own and take care of them. Because we all know there's a lot of bitter people out here where they've got to go through a lot of hot water just to be able to just be present for their child. Y'all can only imagine how many men really want their own babies and not have to deal with the riffraff.
Oh, wow. That's a whole nother topic.
Right.
Yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you about was this idea of feeding your baby in public, which so many people struggle with just if they're a cisgendered woman. And then to add on top of it, the additional complexities of being a transgendered Black man in the South. I feel like this must have been a huge leap for you to say, no, I'm going to do this. I heard you say in the episode of My Extraordinary Family, I'm going to feed my baby when my baby's hungry because my baby deserves to eat. And so I would love to know what the first time was like when you decided, when you fed your baby in public, and what some positive experiences have been like with that, if you've had any, and any negative feedback you've gotten.
The first time was in Walmart. I went up by the front door, the entrance, and I sat down and fed him because he just really wanted to eat. And I don't know, that day I just said, I don't care. I really don't care about, and that's pretty much when I started sharing my nursing journey and actually started like making videos because I just didn't care about how people viewed it. It's either you with it or you're not. I mean, you can't just be so Stevie Wonder to it. I'm going to be that person. And I did it more so because somebody had reached out to me. They're actually carrying a baby and they didn't have top surgery or whatever. And they said they really want to breastfeed. And they're like, but do you breastfeed or whatever? And I said, I do. And he was like, but I don't really see any trans men that breastfeed. And then, I don't know, just that night, I was just really in my head like, maybe if they were to start seeing us, they would want to slow down their transition, because a lot of trans men rush their transition and they go get these top surgeons and do all this because I got some that reach out saying, I wish I wouldn't have gotten top surgery right away because I would be able to nurse my child. And so I wanted to start sharing it and just being visible because of that. Like, just slow it down a little bit. Carry your baby, feed your child. And another reason is because of my sister. My sister was so scared to feed her child because of people looking at her. And I just remember her always going to the car and all that. And I know it's not just me. There's biological women that have the issue with feeding their kids, and how many people have reached out to me talking about that's gross, or your baby should stop eating and they should be eating real food, and then bump that. If you want to feed your child, feed your child. You shouldn't have to cover up. Do you put a blanket over your head to eat food? Why should they? I'm going to feed my child. But it's just so many little factors just played into that one day, and I just said bump it. Maybe if my sister would have seen me then, she probably would have been comfortable because I know she's stressed out big time. Like, she would stop what she's doing in the middle of the store and just go to her car to feed her kid. Like, what? If you don't just feed that baby? And I know it's because so many people frown up upon it. Like, they, right when you're in a restaurant, while they over there eating, it's an issue because your child's eating. Like, no, bump it. We just going to keep feeding them. I don't care. I don't.
Right. I love that. And that's the whole point of normalizing breast and chest feeding, is saying the more people see it, the more normal it will feel. And sometimes it does take feeling a little uncomfortable for that to become normalized.
Yeah. So many people got to sexualize it when what?
Right.
Take the sexual aspect out of it. You're feeding, nourishing your child. Keep it at that.
Right. Has it become harder the older your child has gotten? I know for me, I had no problem feeding my infants in public. And even as a passionate lactation professional, the older my kids got, I fed one until they were 3.5 and another until they were 4.5. And the older I got, the more I was like,
you're getting too old to be doing this out in public now.
I know.
Public. I give him food. I give him snacks. Now that he said one and he can eat real food, you're going to get snacks. Do not offer me because people are already looking crazy because he looks older than one. He's looking 2, almost 3. So I'm like, baby, you cannot just keep standing up to me, looking me in my eyes. Because we go fight some people, kids out here. They get to look at us. So he's not like, you can't just football hold him, but they don't really know what's going on. He a big old baby now. Like, no. The only time I really am like stealth about it is when we're around kids. I at least give the utmost respect when it comes to kids, because I mean, I don't want parents to have that conversation with little ones and all that at this point. So I'm at least stealth about it. I pick and choose my battles.
Right. I understand your position, and I'm also sorry that you have to be in that position.
Yeah.
You know, every person has the right to choose what battles they're going to pick. And I say that to all of my clients too. Like, if you don't want to fight with your relatives about feeding and it's more important to you and you just choose to go feed somewhere in private because that's easier, then that's what you do. But if you want to say, no, I have a right to feed my baby in the middle of the Christmas dinner, then you do that, you know, and just arm yourself and know that there might be a battle.
Mm-hmm.
Is it usually about just the chest feeding, or is it about the fact that you're a man who is feeding a baby from your body?
A man feeding.
Okay.
They off top. I mean, I'm cis-passing or whatever. They off top. Like, why is this man got his chest in his child's mouth? Like, is this man delusional or what? Like, I could just tell. But the thing is, nobody's approached me. It's just they side eye like,
yeah.
Are you seeing this?
Right.
But they never approached me ever.
So which would you prefer? Would you prefer to be approached, or do you prefer people just keep their thoughts to themselves? I already know why you're looking at me. And then also being that I've blown up the way I did on TikTok, a lot of people, 9 times out of 10, they're looking at me because they know me on TikTok. So I don't never know if it's because they know me on TikTok or they're just side-eyeing me. So if you approach me, you approach me. But I always tell them on TikTok, if y'all know me and see me in public, at least speak. But there's a couple people that I follow you on TikTok, but it's never really knowing which one's which anymore, honestly. But it don't bother me for real. But
You can
Yeah.
approach me. I don't bite. I'm friendly. I
Right.
have the rest of the V face, but I am.
Yeah, I met one person in person that I followed on TikTok, and I was like, I was more starstruck than I would have been, I think, if I had seen like a movie star. I was like, I asked to take a photo with her. Like
I get it all the time. I'm not against it. I think it's funny. I didn't think my platform was gonna blow up the way it did, honestly. Like I got on it because I see other parents sharing their pregnancies and all that. And I wanted to do that. I wanted my son to be able to look back on stuff. I want him to know that he's never gonna be a secret. He was never like a burden to my life. Like I'm proud that I had you and I just want to share it to the world. And then it went from one video to another video to another video, and then people reaching out saying how much it's been able to help them, and it's just been going up from there. But that's honestly why I started sharing this. I wanted Z to have something to look back on.
yeah, that's amazing. Well, is there any, as we kind of start to wrap up, are there any words of wisdom that you want to offer milk makers about their own journeys as you look back on your own milk making experience?
Trust the process. Any and everybody, I personally feel like any and everybody can nurse their child, breastfeed their child, whatever term you would like to use. Anybody can if you just are determined. I don't see there being a reason why. Determination is key. If you want it bad enough, get it. You're going to be able to produce. Don't give up. If that's what you're wanting, it may take a couple months. So not everybody's the same, but just do not give up. Trust the process. And pump if people don't like it. If you want to feed your kid till 3, it's your kid.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Love that. And then where can people find you and connect with you to send love only?
I mean, I take trolls too. It don't matter. But,
Okay.
but my TikTok is TransKing30. My TikTok, my YouTube is both TransKing30. If you really want to know, like a lot of my content is going to be TikTok. But TikTok, IG, Instagram, and YouTube are all the same. TransKing30. And then I also have Facebook, which is Tanius Posey. So, I mean, all my platforms are all open platforms. So even if you don't want to follow me and just want to look at my stuff, it's okay. But I mean, I appreciate the follows, the comments. But when y'all find me, make sure y'all tell me where y'all came from. Yeah, let's got the platform out. Where y'all came from. But it's TransKing30 all across the board except for Facebook, Tanius Posey.
Awesome. Well, we'll have it all linked in the show notes so people can easily click. And I thank you so much for sharing your experiences, both on those platforms and here on the Milk Making Minutes, because your story is a really, really important one for all people to hear, not just trans people.
No, it's not just trans. Like I share my story to go across the board for everybody, because I know there's a lot of breastfeeding people that really need that advice too, that probably won't was in that spot I was at. But I want it to be helpful for everyone. It's not just directly to the trans community.
No, yeah. And the fact that you, it took 2 months for your baby to latch and you just didn't give up. You didn't give up. You didn't give up. And you had that really stressful situation. And then suddenly your baby's latching and then off you go. That's incredible. And
Yes.
that'll be so encouraging for anybody who's in that brand new newborn stage and they're having difficulty. So yeah, people don't give up and
You're
seek
just
out.
enough. It's okay. I'd rather be enough than an oversupply, because baby, that don't look like it's peaceful at all. I don't like being. That looks painful. So if you're just enough, it's okay.
Yeah, that's right. That's a great piece of advice. Just enough is perfect.
Your
Awesome.
body,
Thanks so
your
much.
baby. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is awesome.
What I love about this conversation with Tanius is that he teaches us what so many of my clients sometimes need to hear, is that milk making takes patience. There's a huge learning curve. that it takes learning strategies to manage our own mental health and to decrease our own stress levels, and that sometimes the only way that we will learn this new skill is through the mentorship of somebody who has been there before us, like his sister did for him. And when it comes down to it, that is the same whether you are cisgender, transgender, non-binary. We all have that baseline that we're starting from. And then it's so important to hear stories like this of someone fighting for equitable care to the care that we all know is subpar to begin with when it comes to receiving lactation support. If you want to talk about both amazing and subpar care that you have received or given as a lactation professional, join my Milk Making Minutes community group. That's a place where we discuss the inequities and the difficulties that exist when it comes to lactation care. And it's a place where both providers in the perinatal field and milk makers come together to discuss these things in a community of people who care about getting it better. We're not going to get it right necessarily, but we can make it better. Can't wait to see you there. And just a quick reminder that if you are looking for one more way to reduce your stress and anxiety, you can go to feastandfettle.com and use my code MILK to get $30 off your first week of delicious meals delivered right to your front door. Bye.